Memorandum. Fragments of Life. To the Keeper of the Unsaid. From the Scribe of the Eternal Wilderness. Date: the perpetual now. Subject: an assemblage of fragments, a map of the runes. Smoked salmon cream cheese. The first memory is a taste. It is not a grand one. It is the cold, sharp tang of smoked salmon blended into the bland, forgiving medium of cream cheese, spread thin on a bagel half. This was a Sunday morning ritual, performed in a kitchen flooded with a light that promised nothing, a light that was merely the absence of night. The act was one of delicate, precise construction, the smooth application, the careful placement of capers like tiny, salty grenades. It was an attempt at normalcy, at a curated life. We were playing house, even then, even when the foundations were already saturated with a slow, creeping damp. We ate our carefully constructed breakfasts, and pretended not to hear the low, persistent frequency of dread that vibrated through the floorboards, the luxury of the fish, the commonality of the cheese, a perfect edible contradiction, a facade you could chew and swallow. I remember the way the pink strands of salmon would cling to the knife, a messy, organic truth disrupting the clean, white surface of the utensil, a warning I did not heed. The title is nigger. This word is an artifact. It is not a word, it is a tool, designed for a specific purpose, to deconstruct a human being into a pile of manageable, non-threatening components. It is the linguistic equivalent of a render farm, taking a complex, breathing entity and reducing it to a single, flat, uncomplicated polygon. It is a title conferred by an imagination that is terrified of complexity, that requires a simple, brutal hierarchy to function. To have this word thrown at you is to be asked to occupy a space you did not design. It is to be handed a script for a play you never auditioned for. The air changes. It becomes thick, resistant. Sound distorts. For a moment the world is not the world. It is a diorama of someone else's cruel and simple fantasy, and you are the central, static exhibit. You are forced to bear witness to the external confirmation of an internal fear, that to a significant portion of the ecosystem, you are not a person, but a problem. A title, but not a name. The power does not lie in the syllables themselves, but in the history they drag behind them. A chain of centuries, of laws and lashes, of broken families and broken bodies. It is the sound of a system reminding you of your designated place within its machinery. And the most terrifying part is the silence that follows. A silence that is not empty, but full of the echo, and the expectation that you will now perform the role you have just been assigned. Niggy Tardas, Saul Williams. There is a necessary destruction that precedes creation. A sonic prophet, Williams, clad in the borrowed shimmering skin of a rock and roll alien, understood this. The title itself, Niggy Tardas, is a weaponized amalgamation. It takes the ultimate racial slur and welds it to the archetype of the androgynous, genre-obliterating star. It is a declaration of war on categories. It is the sound of a mind refusing the prefabricated identities offered to it, and instead forging its own in the fires of art and noise. This is not an escape. It is an invasion. It is taking the very frequencies used to suppress and transforming them into a transmission of defiance. The music is not comfortable. It is a landscape of abrasive electronics, pounding rhythms, and a voice that is sometimes a roar, sometimes a whisper, always a challenge. It is the sound of the internal conflict made external, broadcast for all to hear. It is the sound of someone tearing down their own psychological ghetto with their bare hands and building a rocket ship from the rubble. To listen is to understand that the path to liberation is not paved with polite requests. It is paved with shattered expectations, with the broken pieces of what you were told you had to be. It is the sound of one becoming his own father, his own nation, his own God. I'm a permanent figment of your cruel, inhumane imagination. You have created me. Do not shirk the responsibility. I am the monster under your bed, the threat in your alleyway, the face you assign to your economic anxieties. I am the symbol of everything you fear you might become, or everything you fear will take what you have. I am not a person to you. I am a function. I am the negative space that gives your positive self-definition its shape. Your news cycles feed on me. Your political strategies require me. Your entertainment cheapens me. I am the permanent resident of the dark corners of your collective psyche. You project your own violence, your own lust, your own laziness, your own cunning onto this vessel you have labeled me, and then you punish the vessel for the contents you yourself poured into it. I am a figment. I have no autonomy in your story. I am a reaction, never an action. I am a problem to be solved, a condition to be medicated, a statistic to be managed. My humanity is the one detail your imagination consistently, cruelly edits out. And so I am trapped, forced to live inside the cramped, airless prison of your perception. This memorandum is my attempt to pick the lock from the inside. Raw meats. There is a truth that exists before civilization, before language, before the delicate lies of society. It is the truth of the body, red in tooth and claw. It is the truth of raw meat, the unadorned muscle, the gristle, the blood that pools on the white styrofoam tray. We hide from this truth. We cook it, season it, slice it into unrecognizable shapes. We turn the once living into cuisine, putting as much distance as possible between the act of eating and the fact of death. But the raw remains. It is the substrate. It is the primal scream that exists before the poem is written. It is the rage that precedes the carefully worded complaint. It is the desire that exists before the ritual of courtship. It is the unmediated, unfiltered, and often ugly reality of existence. To confront the raw meat of one's own being is a horrifying task. To look at the naked want, the capacity for violence, the simple animal need for warmth, food, and dominance, is to see a creature that no amount of philosophy or art can fully disguise. We are, all of us, just a few hot meals away from reverting to this state. The supermarket is a temple built over an abattoir. Our politeness is a thin veneer over a core of raw, hungry meat. Destroyed by the internal and external. A structure collapses. Is it because of the storm outside or the dry rot within? The answer is always both. The external pressure finds the point of internal weakness. The wind howls and the beam, already softened from years of a hidden, patient decay, finally splinters. This is the story of a psyche. The external forces are a constant weather system, the slights, the systemic barriers, the economic pressures, the expectations, the relentless grinding noise of a world that seems indifferent at best and hostile at worst. They are the bricks thrown at the window, the floodwaters rising at the door. The internal forces are the architecture itself, the flawed design, the foundation poured on unstable ground, a childhood of conditional love, a genetic predisposition to a certain sadness, a mind that analyzes itself into paralysis, the weak jolts of self-doubt, the faulty wiring of trauma. The destruction is never a singular event. It is a collaboration. The world provides the catalyst. The self provides the combustible material. A cruel word lands on a pre-existing field of shame. A professional failure resonates with a deep-seated belief in one's own inadequacy. The external blow is amplified 1,000 times by the internal echo chamber. You are not just being attacked from the outside. You are being betrayed from within. The walls do not just fall. They are pushed, and they choose to give way. No more sunny days. The prognosis is not a storm. A storm implies drama, a climax, a passing. This is different. This is a permanent meteorological shift. The sun has not been obscured by clouds. It has been decommissioned. The very concept of sunny has been retired from the active lexicon. This is the landscape of a profound and settled depression. It is not sadness, which is a temporary weather pattern that is a new climate. This is a new climate. The light, when it comes, is a flat gray-white. a clinical light that illuminates without warming, that reveals without comforting. It is the light of a hospital corridor at 3 a.m. In this climate, memory itself becomes treacherous. You can remember the idea of a sunny day. You can recall the factual data. The temperature was warm, the sky was blue, but the sensory memory, the feeling of light on skin as a positive, nourishing force, is gone. It has been erased. The neural pathways that led to that particular brand of joy have been washed out like roads in a flood. Hope becomes an abstract, almost mathematical concept. You can understand it logically, but you can no longer feel its texture. The world continues its business. People plan for futures under imagined suns, and you watch them from inside this bell jar of perpetual twilight, wondering how they can still believe in something so clearly fictional. Rhetoric. We are drowning in a sea of manipulated symbols. Language has been divorced from meaning and pressed into service as a weapon, a tool of control, a smokescreen. Rhetoric is the machinery of this divorce. It is the art of making the worse appear the better reason, of constructing logical-seeming frameworks for illogical, often brutal, desires. It is not the clear, sharp tool of the philosopher used to dissect truth. It is the bludgeon of the politician, the seductive whisper of the advertiser, the convoluted incantation of the bureaucrat. It is designed not to illuminate, but to persuade, not to discover, but to win. Listen to it. The talking points that cycle on the news channels, the focus group slogans of a campaign, the corporate mission statement filled with empty verbs like leverage, synergize, and empower. This is not communication. It is a form of psychological programming. It uses the shape of reason to bypass reason, appealing directly to fear, to tribe, to vanity. In such an environment, silence becomes a radical act. To refuse to participate in the exchange of corrupted language is to declare a sort of secession, but it is a lonely secession. To be silent is to be left out of the conversation that is ostensibly shaping the world. You are left with the raw, unprocessed material of experience, with no clean, prefabricated phrases to contain it. You are left with a scream, while everyone else is speaking in perfect, polished paragraphs. Below zero. This is the temperature of the soul when all metabolic processes of emotion have ceased. It is not the active pain of a cut or a burn. It is the absolute zero of feeling, a perfect, sterile stillness. In this state, the world is received as pure information, without a corresponding value judgment. A tragedy on the news is simply a sequence of images and sounds. A personal loss is a logistical problem to be solved. The heart has not been broken. It has been cryogenically frozen. It is preserved, but it is not alive. This is a survival mechanism, of course. When the emotional temperature drops too far, too fast, the system shuts down to prevent a total structural failure. It is the psychological equivalent of a mammal going into torpor to survive a harsh winter. But the danger is that the thaw never comes. The external world may warm, but the internal permafrost remains. Life at below zero is a life of echoes. You know you should feel something. You observe the reactions of others and you mimic them like an actor learning a part. You form the shape of a smile with your mouth, but the muscles feel like dead things. You speak words of comfort, but they leave your lips like puffs of air in an already frozen room, adding no warmth. You are a spectator to your own existence, watching it through a thick plate of ice. Wasted days. Time becomes a viscous, slow-moving river of molasses. This is not leisure. Leisure is a chosen pause. This is a state of involuntary suspension. The mind is not at rest. It is idling at a high, frantic RPM, but the clutch is disengaged. No forward motion is possible. A wasted days is a period spent entirely in the waiting room of your own life. You are waiting for a spark, for a signal, for the energy to cohere into purpose. It does not come. The hours bleed into one another. You might move from the bed to the chair, to the kitchen, and back to the bed, tracing the same worn path through the day, a ghost in your own home. There is a specific quality to the light in a wasted days. It is the slow amber light of a late afternoon that seems to last for days. It is dust motes dancing in a shaft of sun, their frantic, random movement a perfect metaphor for a mind that is all activity and no direction. You consume things, food, television, scrolling feeds, not for nourishment, but to fill the void, to give the passing time a semblance of structure. At the end of a wasted days, there is no sense of accomplishment, no restful fatigue. There is only a hollowed-out feeling, the faint chemical residue of spent attention, and the grim understanding that another block of your finite time has been surrendered to the void. Bemidji. A name on a map, a dot in the vast, cold expanse of the northern Midwest. It signifies a place of departure, or perhaps a place of being left. It is the town you drive through on the way to somewhere else. The sky here is immense, a great dome lid of gray or brilliant, unforgiving blue. The lakes are countless, cold, and dark. Bemidji is the feeling of isolation that is not lonely, but absolute. It is the understanding of your own smallness against a landscape that is indifferent to your dreams, your sorrows, your very existence. The pines do not care. The water does not care. The long, silent winter does not care. This is where you go when you have run out of road, both literally and metaphorically. It is the end of the line, the place where the noise of the world finally fades to a distant whisper, and all you are left with is the sound of the wind in the needles of the trees, a sound like a constant low-grade sigh. It is a beautiful and terrifying place to be. Beautiful because of its raw, unvarnished truth, terrifying because that truth offers no comfort, only a stark, unblinking reflection of your own insignificance. Mankato. Another dot on the map, south of Bemidji. The name carries a different weight, a historical resonance of violence and erasure. It is a place where something terrible happened and where life, in its stubborn, amnesiac way, continued on top of the burial ground. The past is not past here. It is a layer in the soil, a faint taste of iron in the water. Mankato is the memory of a wound that is a town, a people, a nation would rather forget. It is the suppressed history that nonetheless shapes the present. The streets are laid out normally, the businesses operate, the seasons change, but there is an unspoken tension, a ghost in the machinery. It is the knowledge that the ground you walk on is consecrated by suffering, even if no monument marks the spot. To be in a Mankato state of mind is to carry a history that is not fully your own, but that you have inherited. It is to feel the weight of old crimes, old battles, old injustices as a persistent, low-frequency ache in the bones of your being. You live in the present, but you are forever building your house on the unquiet graves of the past. Blue Earth. A name that promises a kind of purity, a planetary unity, the blue marble from space, a vision of the whole, unbroken, beautiful world. It is an ideal, a destination, a state of grace that one strives for. But the reality of Blue Earth is likely more prosaic. It is probably a small town with a water tower painted like the globe. It is the aspiration toward a global consciousness, filtered through a local, limited understanding. The promise is vast, but the execution is human scale, and therefore flawed. The Blue Earth state is the hope for connection, for a healed planet, for a unified human family. It is the part of us that believes in the big picture, that feels a sense of kinship with all living things. It is a noble, necessary fiction, but it is a difficult state to maintain in the face of the daily, grinding reality of Bemidji and Mankato. To believe in Blue Earth is to constantly fight against the evidence of fracture, of tribalism, of a world carved into a million little parcels of contested dirt. It is the hardest faith of all. Breasts and vagina, full-fledged female. This is a declaration stripped of poetry. It is a biological fact offered as a complete definition. Full-fledged female, as if the possession of these specific anatomical features is the final requirement for a certificate of completion. The rest, the mind, the spirit, the desires, the contradictions, the history, the soul, is implied or perhaps irrelevant. This reduction is a form of violence. It is the cage of biology. To be defined solely by your reproductive equipment is to be turned into a walking, talking function. You are a potential mother, a object of desire, a collection of hormonal cycles. Your thoughts are female thoughts. Your anger is female anger. Your ambition is female ambition, all filtered through the primary overwhelming fact of your body. But the internal reality is a universe that cannot be contained by such a simple label. The full-fledged female is a myth. There is only the individual, the specific, the complex system of memories, traumas, joys, and fears that happen to reside in a body of a particular type. The body is the vessel, not the voyage. To confuse the map for the territory is the first and greatest error of a cruel and lazy imagination. Kryptonite. Every strength contains the seed of its own negation. The thing that makes you powerful is also the source of your ultimate vulnerability. For the archetype, it was radiation from a lost homeworld. For the individual, it is more subtle. Your kryptonite is the specific frequency of doubt that resonates with your deepest insecurities. It is the person whose disapproval unravels years of self-built confidence. It is the memory that, when touched, causes your entire personality to short-circuit. It is the substance, the behavior, the situation that you are uniquely unequipped to handle, that bypasses all your defenses and leaves you weak, exposed, and helpless. We spend our lives building fortresses of character, of accomplishment, of ideology. We think we are safe behind these walls, but kryptonite does not attack the walls. It attacks the fundamental substance of which you are made. It reminds you that your strength was always conditional, that you are, despite all your efforts, fragile. To know your own kryptonite is the most painful form of self-knowledge. It is to hold the key to your own destruction in the palm of your hand. Dread the dirty parents. This is not about hygiene. It is about the soil of the past. The dirty parents are the generations that came before, who handled the world with their grubby, compromised hands. They made messy, often brutal choices. They fought dirty wars. They upheld dirty systems. They told themselves dirty little lies to get through the day. And we have inherited the dirt. We are born into a world already stained by their sins and their compromises. We are told to respect our elders, to honor our ancestors. But what do you do when the legacy you are handed is one of pollution, of injustice, of psychological damage? The family is the first system we encounter, and it is often a system built on a foundation of unspoken trauma, repressed desires, and inherited fears. To dread them is to feel the weight of their unresolved lives pressing down on your own. It is to see their flaws, their weaknesses, their cruelties, slowly and horrifyingly manifesting in yourself. It is the fear that you are not your own person, but merely a receptacle for their ghosts. You are doomed to repeat their mistakes, to clean up their messes, to live out the consequences of choices you never made. The dirty parents are the original sin from which there is no baptism. Keeping fires burning. Against the cold, against the dark, against the encroaching silence, there is the fire. It is a deliberate, effortful act. The fire of will, the fire of memory, the fire of art, the fire of resistance. This is not the roaring, destructive blaze of passion. That fire burns hot and fast and consumes itself. This is the slow, steady burn of the hearth. It requires constant tending. You must gather the fuel, the books that inspire you, the conversations that sustain you, the practices that ground you. You must arrange the logs just so. You must protect it from the rain and the wind. Keeping a fire burning is an act of defiance in a universe that tends toward entropy and cold. It is a declaration that you will not go gently into that good night, that you will generate your own light, your own warmth, even if it only illuminates a small circle. It is a lonely task, often performed in isolation, but is the most essential task. For as long as one fire burns, the possibility of other fires exists. It is a signal to other isolated tenders of flames in the vast darkness. I am here. I am still burning. Kardashev scale. A method for measuring a civilization's level of technological advancement based on its energy consumption. A Type 1 civilization can harness all the energy of its home planet. A Type 2, its home star. A Type 3, its entire galaxy. We are not even a type 1. We are a factional, squabbling, nascent civilization, still burning dead things for fuel, still trapped in the gravity well of our own tribalisms. We play with the energy of the atom like children playing with a box of matches in a library. The Kardashev scale is a dream of a future that may never come, a future of cosmic purpose, of unified effort, of transcending our planetary cradle. It is a beautiful, intoxicating dream, but from here in the muck and mire of our present condition, it seems like a fantasy. We are too busy with our petty wars, our resource hoarding, our identity politics, to even conceive of such a collective undertaking. The scale is a mirror that shows us not what we are, but what we could be, and the vast, humiliating distance between the two. It is a measure of our potential and, by extension, our failure. The Bhagavad Gita, not a book of peace, but a book of war, set on a battlefield in the space between two armies ready to clash. The central teaching is not about avoiding conflict, but about engaging in it with a detached, disciplined spirit. It is about doing your duty, your dharma, without attachment to the fruit of your actions. This is a terrifying and profound philosophy. It is not a call to pacifism, but to a kind of sacred violence. The warrior Arjuna does not want to fight. He is filled with doubt and despair at the prospect of killing his kinsmen. Krishna does not tell him to lay down his arms. He tells him to stand up and fight, but to fight with a mind anchored in the eternal, a mind that is not swayed by victory or defeat, pleasure or pain. The Gita is the answer to the question of how to act in a world that is inherently full of conflict and moral ambiguity. The answer is you must act. You cannot not act. Inaction is itself an action, but you must act from a place of principle, not a place of passion. You must be an instrument of a higher order, a clear, clean weapon in a messy, unclean world. It is a philosophy for those who have run out of other options, who have looked into the abyss of their own inaction and found it wanting. It is the path of the reluctant warrior. Tat, permanent skin inkings. The permanent marking, the final memo, the tattoo. It is the opposite of the fleeting thought, the temporary fleeting, the wasted days. It is a commitment made visible on the canvas of the body. It is a story that you have chosen to tell for the rest of your life. The needle is the instrument of this commitment. It is not written ink that can be washed away. It injects it beneath the epidermis into the dermis, making the story a part of the living tissue. It is a controlled injury, a self-inflicted wound that heals into art. It is the externalization of an internal truth, burned to the skin so you can never forget it, so you can never fully deny who you were at the moment you chose it. These skin inkings are a map of the journey, a symbol from the Bhagavad Gita, a fragment of a lyric from Saul Williams, a coordinate for Bemidji or Blue Earth, a astrological sign not as a frivolity but as an archetype to aspire to or to understand. Each one is a chapter in this memorandum, a hard-won piece of understanding made permanent. They are not decorations, they are sigils, they are reminders, they are promises to a future self, they are the scars of battles fought in the internal and external worlds. They are the evidence that you are here, that you felt, that you thought, that you suffered, and that you chose to mark the passage, to leave a trace. When the body is gone, these stories, etched in this living parchment, will be gone with it. But for now they stand as a testament, a permanent record, a skin-bound book of the runes and the resolutions.